Transgender activists will often say that being transgender is a normal developmental path, and therefore we should affirm children who have trans identities rather than trying to change them. I just want to push back on this, especially as someone who was transgender as a child. I know what it's like to have those feelings of self-hatred. I understand what it's like to think that if you can just escape your body, that you'll feel better. I understand what it feels like to believe that you're born in the wrong body. And I also know, now that I'm an adult, and I've resolved those feelings of gender dysphoria, that it's not normal for a child to feel that way. That those feelings of distress, that those feelings of self-hatred are in no way a normal developmental path for a child. And we should not be affirming a child who feels this way about themselves. Someone who is uncomfortable in their body, who feels like they were born in the wrong body, is exhibiting signs of distress, of a deep internal wound, of something that's wrong, because it's not normal to hate yourself. And I also want to address the idea that medically transitioning is an appropriate treatment for children who have a trans identity. I think back about what I felt like when I was a child. I was transgender starting in first grade, and if somebody had offered me the opportunity to go on puberty blockers, I would have snatched it up in a second because I hated my body so much, and I was so sure that I was a boy. And I had this idea that if I could just convince the world that I was a boy, then all the anxiety in my life would go away. All the self-hatred that I had would go away. All the worry that I had would go away. So I have no doubt I would have jumped on puberty blockers, and then as soon as I could, I would have gone on cross-sex hormones and gotten surgery to change my body so that it would present more like a male. I have no doubt. But I also know that that's not a normal developmental path. It is not normal to try and change a healthy body and make it less functional, which is what these drugs and surgeries do. Puberty blockers have horrible side effects that can cause lifelong problems. Cross-sex hormones also can cause ongoing lifetime problems even once they're stopped. And surgeries are irreversible. None of these are normal developmental paths. And to suggest they are is to tell children that it's okay to cause their healthy bodies to be less functional in order to address a mental health anxiety, a mental health issue. Now, we don't do this in any other case. There are children who I'm sure would feel much happier and healthier if we gave them heroin, but we don't do that because we know it's unhealthy. We know there are anorexics who would feel more comfortable with themselves if they were allowed to get liposuction, but we also know that would put them in danger and would also reaffirm their false belief that they were overweight. This is really the only case where we accept the idea that harming a physically healthy body is appropriate. And it's not. There's no way this is the developmentally appropriate path. And we're starting to discover that more and more because of people like me who are speaking out. Children like me who were transgender, who desisted or detransitioned. Now, I was very lucky. My school psychologist did not affirm my trans identity. She did not agree to call me Timothy, which is what I wanted them to call me. She did not tell the teachers to allow me to use the boys' bathrooms or the locker rooms. And she certainly did not refer me to a gender clinic where I'd get puberty blockers. And I'm so thankful for that. But now if I were a child, that's likely what would happen. And instead of growing up and having a physically healthy female body, I would have a body that looked something like a male body, but it really wouldn't be. And I would have all kinds of health side effects from these medications and surgeries. These medications are not reversible, and they have side effects including death. And so to tell a child, or to tell an adult, to tell a parent that it's developmentally normal to be a trans child, and that seeking things to cause a healthy body to be less functional are normal, that's just absurd. And in any other context, we would question it. A lot of times these kids initially feel a sense of euphoria. They feel really good about themselves. in the same way that a child would if you acquiesced to any of their demands. But we know in the long run that over time, these treatments do not heal them. They render them less functional, less emotionally stable, and the side effects are just unbelievable. So it's not a developmentally normal path to tell a child that their self-hatred is normal. It's not a developmentally healthy path to give a child drugs and surgeries that render their physically healthy bodies less healthy. And it's certainly not a developmentally appropriate path to tell them to do all these things. And in the long run, their mental health issues are not even going to go away. That gender dysphoria, that sense of ill ease, doesn't resolve itself. We are doing a huge disfavor to these children